Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Al Gordon. So we're going to get started here. And so we're going to talk a little bit about operating amateur radio satellites. Before we even get started here, quick check in the room. How many people here who have made at least one satellite QSO so far? Small handful. Wow. How many of you want to? All right, significantly more. Good. All right, we're in the right place. All right, so our goals for this evening here in the next hour or so, we're going to talk a little bit about satellite concepts and terminology. We're going to talk about how to work some of these satellites. I saw an email on the list here from Don having some problems earlier. We'll fix that. We'll talk about my portable satellite station. It's obviously portable. I have it set up right here. And we'll close out by talking about my new favorite satellite to work, which is called GreenCube, IA-117. I'm Al Gordon. I'm a extra class licensed amateur radio operator. Everything we're going to talk about today, though, you can do with a technician license. All right. I've been licensed for about 5 years up in the Pacific Northwest and moved out to the area here. And actually, that photo that's up on the screen there, that's myself. And I think that's Joe up there. Not recalling the call sign. I have it on a slide covered by the thing there where I can't read it. But this was my introduction. There we go, K7AJG. Hopefully, I don't know if Joe's on the Zoom call or not. But my first experience with Vienna Wireless was showing up for Field Day in 2019 with an HT and a handheld satellite antenna saying, hey, you guys want to, work a bird for Field Day. And so sure enough, we were able to do that. So field operations and portable operations are kind of my thing. It goes from that Marine Corps background that was mentioned a little earlier. I was a field radio operator in the Marine Corps like a long, long time ago. And I enjoy doing that now. Not only do I enjoy it, I don't have a lot of choice with my current setup. So I'm in a small apartment, not really great for setting up and most of what we need to do here for getting big antennas in the air and everything. All right. So what are we really talking about with ham radio satellites, amateur satellites? The art of retransmitting radio signals through a repeater about the size of a shoebox, traveling about 17,500 miles an hour, 250 miles or more above the surface of the Earth, right? Sounds a lot more impressive when you talk about it like that, right? You're able to, bounce a signal off this tiny little thing going through the sky really high up, really fast, all right? So, some of these concepts, just making sure we cover these quickly before we move into some of the other things here. So for purposes of today's talk, when we're talking about satellites, we're talking about the, artificial or man-made type, and specifically ham radio or amateur radio satellites. That's any satellite that's carrying a ham radio payload like a beacon receiver or transceiver, transponder or digipeater. You'll hear us talk about birds. Bird is just another word for satellite. I love the ham radio vernacular. The fact that we spend thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, put them in a room and call that room a shack. It's kind of funny. So the satellite guys, one of their terms there is bird. They use a lot. All right, ground station, that's your shack on the ground, right? That's where you're doing everything. Your radio, any equipment you need, your logging, Doppler shift adjustment, antenna pointing, contact logging, all of those sorts of things. That's part of your ground station. Uplink and downlink. All right. This is going to be the uplink is what you are transmitting from the ground up to the satellite, and the downlink is the response in the other direction. Sounds really basic, I know, but somehow people get that backwards sometimes. Satellite mode. All right. Now, we're not talking about your radio has a satellite mode. Like the radio I'm going to show here, this IC9700 does have what it calls a satellite mode. We're talking about satellite modes. We're talking about describing which radio bands the satellite operates on. UHF up, VHF down, VHF up, UHF down, 23 centimeters on one of those bands, things like that. All right. we'll talk a little bit more about that in here in a moment. I have another slide on that. Doppler shift. Doppler shift is just simply the fact that your frequency is going to be received or perceived, I should say, as being either higher or lower in frequency than what you are actually transmitting by the satellite as it's passing overhead, depending on whether it's coming towards you or moving away from you. All right. And we'll talk a little bit here about Doppler shift and how to adjust for Doppler shift both in the up and downlink. All right. We can do this in one of two ways, manually or automated. Now, automated is just simply using some software to do this, and I'll show you an example of some of that software here. Manual Doppler adjustment. Now, if you are operating satellites with just a simple handheld, like an HT and a handheld antenna, like that picture I had at the beginning of here, you're not going to have the ability to do computer-controlled adjustment. Now, right now, I have a mic in one hand. I have my clicker in the other. I can barely handle these two things at the same time. I can be honest with you. All right. So sorry about the audio quality if I'm going in and out. But imagine having an HT in one hand and your antenna in the other, and then having to adjust frequencies on both the up and downlink. Quite a lot going on right there, right? So you're going to want to be able to maybe do half that work. Maybe you only adjust for one side of that. And we have something called the one true rule when it comes to adjusting for Doppler in these scenarios when you're doing manual adjustments. The one true rule just simply says that you should either adjust the uplink or the downlink, depending on whether or not that's the higher of the two frequency bands. In other words, you're operating VHF, UHF, you're going to be adjusting the UHF and leaving the VHF alone, right? FM birds, the FM satellites. So these are any satellites that support making QSOs through FM voice, very similar to a crossband repeater in the sky, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit. People think these are the easiest satellites to work. They can be. They can be the least expensive to work. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get that going, though. So we'll look at that. Talk about packet birds as well. Satellites that support APRS or other digital packet modes, right? The last few of these, I realize this is a lot of stuff just on slides. Question. Oh, I skipped linear. Sorry. Linear. Linear birds are very similar in some ways to the FM birds. The linear birds actually, you know what? I have another slide coming up for this as well. But the key differentiator here, think of operating a repeater. When you get on a repeater, you are operating on the repeater's frequency. If someone else is talking, you're listening to them. You don't really have a choice, right? One person gets to use it at any given time. Kind of like, you know, it's a one-way channel. With the linear birds, this is more like what we think about when we're thinking about operating HF. You can move up and down throughout a bandpass. And you have the ability to, if someone's talking at one frequency, you can move up or down, above or below them, and have another QSO over there. You have a certain amount of bandwidth within each one of these linear birds that you can operate in. All right. Thank you for letting me know that. All right. AMSAT, Amateur Satellite Corporation. This is an organization that exists worldwide with locations all over the world. Some of these are up on the screen here. Our U.S. AMSAT office is in Washington, D.C., just, a few miles away here, right? So this is the organization that's really in charge of making sure that things happen with amateur satellites for amateur radio operators. They're the ones who are doing things like coordinating launches and, designing and launching the satellites, or getting them into the launch vehicles, things like that, and coordinating the frequencies, which is a really important aspect of this. Right now, Oscar, or Project Oscar. Oscar is the name of a project that AMSAT has been running for quite a while now. I don't know the full history of it, but basically, It is, as it says here, orbiting satellite carrying amateur radio. It's just simply the code name they're using for getting satellites up into orbit, and it's part of the naming convention of the satellites that get launched. So we see AO7, that's AMSAT Oscar 7, or AO91, JO97. Some of these different ones, QO100. So these different, the O in all of these is for Oscar, right? And the A's tend to be like America. Q, I think, is like Qatar or something like that. And IO is Italy. So different things like that. So when you see all of these satellites, they all have different names or designations. You're wondering where some of that's coming from. You can see the international aspect of amateur radio there, right? APRS, amateur radio on the International Space Station. So APRS is not part of AMSAT. Right, APRS is its own separate program, which is actually coordinated through other various space agencies. They also work with AMSAT in conjunction with them, but they're working with NASA and the various other organizations as well, specifically to ensure that we ham radio operators have access to being able to make contact with astronauts on the International Space Station. A lot of this has to do with educational purposes, schools making contacts. I think there was actually one scheduled earlier today. So they're doing quite a lot of these lately. They're also the ones who are ensuring that we have amateur radio equipment that's up and running and functional on the space station. So this is a mix of voice packet and slow scan TV through that program. Low Earth orbit. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of satellites you might be able to get out there and start working. The LEOs, the low Earth orbit satellites. These are any satellites that are orbiting at or below around 2,000 kilometers or 1,200 miles above Earth sea level. All right. The ISS, which I mentioned a little earlier, is considered to be a low Earth orbit or LEO satellite. We'll see a few more of these on some of the slides coming up. What we should be able to see on this slide here is that there is there's a circle in the middle there of that globe that's actually showing the footprint of a satellite that's centered there in the frame, right? So the footprint or the area that's able to be covered by a satellite is significantly greater than that of a terrestrial repeater. Basically, this is, again, a repeater with an awful lot of elevation, right? Height makes might when it comes to VHF, UHF, and so forth. So you get a really good area of coverage there, but not so big compared to the MEOs and GEOs that we'll look at here in a second. Now, pass durations for these LEOs, I mentioned that they're going at about 17,500 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. That means that as they cross over the sky, you're only going to get around 10 minutes or so of total visibility or access to that satellite while you are sitting within its footprint, right? Now, the MEOs, medium Earth orbits, these are a little higher up. And by these, I mean one currently that we have access to. These are have an orbital period between 2 and 24 hours, but the time during the pass can be significantly longer. They can be an hour or more. The average time that a IO-117 or GreenCube pass takes is about an hour, as opposed to the 10 minutes or so. A much more leisurely, kind of operating style where you can get up there and actually get some contacts made. Now, another shot of that, just to see what that footprint looks, or I'm sorry, not just the footprint, but the orbit in comparison with the LEOs. The satellite we're looking at right there is IO-117. Well, I mean, this is a graphic of it, obviously. And its orbit above the Earth. And all of those other ones floating around there, kind of hugging the Earth, are the LEOs, right? So that medium Earth orbit satellite has a significantly higher orbit, which means, you get nearly half, anywhere between a third and half of the Earth's surface covered by its operating footprint at any given time. geosynchronous orbits, we're not going to really go into in much depth here, but there's only one of them available to ham radio operators, QO100, and it covers about half of the globe. Unfortunately, not our half, so we're not going to talk about it. Mentioned radio mode or satellite modes a little earlier. So traditionally, or back in the early days of the Oscar program, they came up with this naming convention of just a single letter to describe the up and down bands, A, B, J, etc. There's more than just these. But these describe, for example, a mode J 2-meter uplink and 70 centimeter downlink. All right. We have replaced these over time by just simply saying that mode is like or that bird rather is a UV or a VU or something like that. We're just talking about the uplink and the downlink. All right. So why are we interested in this? We need to know what birds have which modes that match the equipment that we're going to be able to operate with so that we can get out there and start working those birds. Now, by the way, I threw some QR codes up on my slides for any slide that references a website. So any of you want to get access to these, there you go. All right. So when we start looking for which birds operate on which modes, the best place to go, the AMSAT website, amsat.org. And you can search around in there. They have good navigation, but they have an FM satellite frequency summary and a linear satellite frequency summary that tells you what modes all of those different birds operate on and notes about each one of them. They also have a status page. This one page on the AMSAT site is the amateur satellite operator's best friend and worst enemy. Okay, this page shows a whole lot of different satellites with color-coded status indications as to whether or not that satellite was recently heard or reported by other satellite operators and so forth. So what I'll say about this, first of all, as someone who's colorblind, the purple and the blue, they're the same color to me, you know. So, but purple only happens on the ISS when they're not doing normal operations. All right. But everything you see there that's blue means that someone has recently reported the satellite as active. So the easy way to read this chart is to just kind of squint your eyes at it, let them go slightly out of focus, and look for blue lines, right? Everywhere where you see a blue line, go ahead and unsquint and go ahead and read out, AO7 there on the top, AO91, IO117, ISS FM, JO97 looks like pretty good. RS44 is a gangster like usual, SO50, Tevel 3 in that particular case, some things like that. So that's how you want to kind of read that. Now, that said, let's see if we can get all businessy. Past performance does not indicate, future results or something like that, right? So just because something on there says that, hey, someone heard it, yesterday or 2 hours ago or something like that doesn't necessarily mean that the bird's actually going to be active when it passes over top of you, right? Another place to go look is on the AMSAT site. There is a pass predictor. You can put in your grid square, tell it which satellite you want to operate, and it'll come back and tell you what the timing is for that bird schedule. And another site, hams.at or hamsat. This is a fairly new one, I believe, but it's a good site that has a lot of real-time reporting from people on which satellites are being actively worked. Right, the easiest birds to get started with, and I'll put that easiest in quotes like we have there, right? People always say, hey, I'm just going to go start working those FM birds. All right, the FM birds, you just need an HT and a directional antenna. The Arrow 2 is really popular amongst portable operators. Also, the Elk log periodic. I have two of them mounted on my system over here. But those are very popular for that. You'll want something like a portable voice recorder so that you can record your QSOs while you're going. Part of that trick for how do I juggle all these different things sometimes is you don't. A lot of operators don't even bother logging to a logging program or to paper until after the pass is done. They record everything, go back, listen to the recording, and log after the fact. Having a buddy along helps. I'm going to go back a slide. Having a buddy along to help log, not just for logging, but just it's often very difficult to hear and understand what these call signs are as they're breaking through the static. So having a second set of ears is also very handy. Also a tripod. If you can manage and swing a tripod, just make sure that you're getting one that's sturdy and stable enough and has a good enough, like a ball head or something like that on the top that will work with your antenna. The Arrow 2 handheld antenna, a little secret to that antenna, a lot of people don't know, is that it has a foam handle, and underneath the foam in that handle, that's just some foam over the aluminum of the boom, there's a hole drilled in there. You can actually take that hole and attach it right to a tripod on a ball mount head or ball head mount, however that's said. The other thing is, stop going to the, I know all the ham radio stores are going to hate me saying this. Stop going to the ham radio stores. No, don't do that. But also start going to the camera stores. You want to get good tripods, ball mount heads, all these sorts of things. They know all the tricks for that stuff, often a lot better than we hams do. All right. So working in FM Bird, having a full duplex HT really, really helps because you can hear your own signal come back down to you. Okay. Full duplex, meaning that you're able to receive while you are transmitting, right? Most HTs out there that you go out and spend $40 on Amazon and, buy one of those Amazon specials, every time you key down, you don't hear any signal, anything at all, right? That's assuming you break squelch. You should turn the squelch off on these while you're operating the satellites also. But that full duplex means that you can hear your signal coming back to you. If you're running full duplex and you can't hear your signal coming back, that means no one else can either. And if you're sitting there yelling into it and wondering why no one's coming back to you, that's why. The other important thing is having a headset while you're doing that. If you have a full duplex HT in your hand and it's transmitting everything that it hears and it's hearing you, then you're going to get a lot of feedback. And if you're ever on a pass and all you hear is like that, sorry, all my remote people. That's, someone who is in there making the satellite howl. No fun. I've done it a few times, I'll admit. Shouldn't do that. Be prepared, be on time, be early. Satellites don't show up early, but sometimes they do. So got to remember that these pass timings, they're predictions. All right. Depending on how recent your prediction, the data that was used to make that prediction is, then, you may be off by a few minutes. And when these birds only go by, they're only in the air for about 10 minutes and you lose 5 minutes of a pass, or 3 minutes or even 2 minutes, could be a bad thing. Right. So try and be up a little early. Also set your one true frequency that we talked about, so that you're ready to go and be ready to adjust that and set your PL tone. All right. And have your logger ready. All right. Audience participation time. Ready? We're going to see if everyone was paying attention to this one true rule thing. So we're going to work SO50. SO50 has a 145.850 megahertz up and 436.795 down. That's the published frequency for the radio, or for the satellite rather. What should we be doing for the uplink at the beginning of this pass and throughout the pass? Right? So I'm hearing a whole lot of don't do anything. Just let it track and don't adjust it. It's the VHF. This is a VHF UHF pair. UHF is the higher of the two frequency bands. So that's the one that we're going to be making adjustments to. All right. The amount of change that's going to happen on that VHF frequency should be enough that your radio is just going to be able to pick it up anyhow. You'll be good. All right. What are we doing with the downlink then? Well, we're tracking it. So do we want to start higher on a higher frequency at the beginning of the pass or a lower frequency? I'm hearing higher. Everyone's saying higher? Oh, now I'm hearing lower. This is like the Price is Right or something. Higher, lower. So yeah, so we're going to start, in this case, this is the downlink, right? We're going to start the downlink at 805 as opposed to 795, which is that base frequency. All right. And we'll be at around 795, the published frequency, when the bird is at apogee, when it's at the top. And then we'll be adjusting to around 785 or so by the time that the bird is at loss of signal, LOS. So AOS, acquisition of signal, LOS, loss of signal. So the question is, what size step should you use? A lot of handheld, HDs will only do either 2.5 or 5 kilohertz steps, right? So if we're talking about 5 kilohertz steps right here, we're either going up or down by 2 to either side plus the base frequency. So if you're using an HT that you're storing memories in it like that, like you mentioned, you'll set 5 memories up for the downlink or for the uplink, depending on which one you want to adjust. Or you can just do the transfer base memory to VFO, go into VFO mode instead of memory, and adjust up or down that way. Does that mean you're using 5 steps? Yes. So you're going to start like 2 steps down. So so you'll go up 1 step, then you'll be at the center after the next jump up. Then you'll go up 1 more and then up another. You may not even move around that much. And a lot of times people, what they'll do, especially with handhelds, is they'll usually miss one somewhere in the middle and end up having to adjust by 1 or, 1 more than they expect at some point. So again, there's a lot of juggling going on during a short pass. Right. 1 more of these real quick. AO91. So this is the opposite. So we have a VHF uplink and a UHF uplink and a VHF downlink. Uplink, what are we going to do? In this case, we're going to start lower on our transmit, right? The uplink is our transmit. So we're starting lower. Think about this. As the satellite is coming towards you, the perceived frequency is actually going to be kind of compressed, effectively a higher frequency, right? As it goes away from you. So it's wee, right? So during the we part, instead of the you part, during the we part, you're going to adjust down so that you take that higher part and you adjust it to be more like what you want to be heard on the satellite. And then the rest makes sense. Light bulbs. Pew, pew, pew. Yes, I'm compensating. I'm sorry. We're compensating. Yes. Yeah. All right. And for the downlink, we're not going to change that. Expect pileups on the FM birds, right? If you hear break in the action, and don't start transmitting until you can hear other stations. When you hear other stations, go ahead and get ready. Listen for your spot. Jump in. Do not go CQ, CQ, CQ. Yes, you don't want to do that on the satellites. Everyone's going fast and dirty up there. Just get up there real quick. I'm not going to read everything on the slide here. Just be prepared and be ready. And one of these birds that we can work again, ISS. There's some of the settings for it. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this slide. All right. Just to point out, though, that the ISS does do different types of operations on schedules. So they turn off the radios while they're doing spacewalks. They switch to different frequencies when they're doing school contacts, things like that. So don't expect them on the regular bird. All right. We're going to try this and see how this works over here. I actually got on the radio yesterday and listened to some. Well, I actually participated, but let's see if I can find the right things here. And I'll try and play this so that it can be heard through the mic for the remote people. All right. little noisy there. Hopefully that went through okay. All right. So everyone here pretty well in here for that. So pretty much what you'd expect, but this isn't quite like operating on a repeater. You got the static going on. You got a little bit of cutting in and out and so forth going on, and so forth. So, all right. Now, what's easier than all of this? APRS, right? APRS packet. You can buy an HT that supports it, or you can retrofit your existing HT. Now, to go to Don's question a little earlier about, hey, what can I expect to actually get up and working with a Bofung and a tape measure? Well, if you add, again, at this point, you're like, quadrupling or more the cost of your Bofung, but, go out and buy a MobiLink D or a DigiRig Mobile adapter, something like that, to allow your HT to be able to do APRS, or get a Yaesu FT3D or 5D or Kenwood THD 75 when they come out in a few months, and you got, $700 burning in your pocket or whatever they decide to charge for them. You'll be able to work the birds with those simple antennas. I have worked APRS with a Yaesu Yaesu FT5D and the stock rubber duck antenna. Just walked out my door one day, got on, boom, 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 up and down. Pretty sweet, right? Now working these birds, you just have to configure the APRS settings a little differently than you do for terrestrial APRS. You set your path to APRS instead of like wide 1, wide 2, all of those different things you have there. Make sure that your frequency is set properly. That there is a different frequency used for satellite APRS versus the terrestrial. And just, again, wait until you start receiving packets. As soon as you do, go ahead and put a call out. I like to set up my beacon to act like a CQ. So I put a message inside my beacon, APRS beacon, that says, CQ in my grid square, or CQ via ISS in my grid square. Someone comes back to me, I just select them on the radio, get a reply, and you want to have canned replies ready to go. Usually you want to make sure that you have things like, your grid square, some other contact information in case they want to, check in with you. Does anyone know how long it takes to transmit an average APRS packet? Couple seconds, about anywhere between a second to a second and a half usually, right? So it's pretty quick. So you can get a lot of data out pretty quickly. Even if you have to send 2 or 3 packets, it goes really quick. All right. Now you're going to want to listen for that packet to be digipeated. You want to hear it come back to you. If you don't hear it come back to you, wait a little bit, try again. Don't wait too long. That bird's, passing over pretty quick. All right. Where can we make those QSOs? When the ISS has their packet radio running, we can do them through the ISS. There's a couple of other birds as well. Duwato 2 or PO 101. IO 86, I believe, is also packet capable. Right. Now, we're specifically talking APRS packet for those. All right. Enough about APRS, but that would be, Don, you want to try it? That's your Huckleberry? All right, cool. So I say the casual QSO LEOs, right? This is where we're talking about those linear birds. Now with the linear birds, like I said, you have a little bit of frequency. I want to say frequency agility, even though that's not the right term, but you can move up and down across the band a little bit, have more than one QSO within the passband. Now, with the linears, we talk about these in one of two ways. We say it's either an inverting or non-inverting, right? With a non-inverting, I can't really do this without using my hands, and so I'm not going to try too much. But other than what it says here, when you send your uplink signal, if it's on the high end of the passband for the uplink, then your downlink signal is going to also be there. And it's kind of like it's a mirror on the other side. I should say that for the inverting rather. But the short version of all of this is, so if you're on an inverting bird, most of the birds these days are inverting. It just tends to work a little bit better. Your radio has to do a little less work, less converting back and forth up and down. But just watch for that and make sure that your radio and or the software that you're using to control your radio is set properly for whether or not you're talking on an inverted or non-inverted linear bird, right? So when you get on these birds, you start working a linear, you're going to have to spot yourself. Yeah. So the question is, what's really being inverted? It's your signal is your signal is going in on one band, the pass band of that frequency band, and it's being retransmitted at the same time through the downlink. Similar to an ordinary repeater, but there's a little more to it than that. Like I said, I want to use my hands and do a bunch of stuff here that's like going like this band, top band, and bottom band are both doing this, or they're doing this. And it's inverse, and the direction of the sideband. A lot to it there. Other than that, so the good news is, just make sure your radio is set to the right mode, and it'll do all that work for you. All right. So when we start to work a linear satellite, first thing is you have to actually spot yourself. You have to hear your own signal on the downlink when you transmit, so that you know that you are in the right place. And this is somewhat similar to zero beating in CW. And the idea here is that chances are that your radio is not going to sound, it will not sound to you like in your own radio, like you are exactly on frequency without adjusting a little bit on the receive side. This is where you use your RIT to make that adjustment. Once you find that, spot yourself, listen to yourself talking, or some people whistle, some people do quick CW bursts, things like that to listen. They get an ear finely tuned for 600 hertz, something like that. Cool. As soon as you spot yourself, go ahead and find a spot in the passband and start calling CQ or respond to a CQ. All right. So as I mentioned, we can move up and down in the passband, and there's likely to be multiple QSOs going on simultaneously. Now, if you have equipment that is able to do sideband on UHF VHF, chances are you can do linear birds. Some people go out and buy like two Yaesu 817s or 818s. Got to look for them used, and they're kind of unobtainium right now. Another choice, of course, is something like the radio I'm using here, the 9700 from ICOM. Right. A very popular bird to look for, RS-44. That bird's been up forever. It's always working. As a matter of fact, it went quiet a couple of weeks ago for like a day or two, and a lot of people started freaking out, saying, "Hey, what's going on, man? It's always rock solid. It's always there." Right. So let's do another quick listen on what linear birds sound like. Yeah.
When you said that, you mentioned two Yaesus, 817. Are those are QRP rigs? Is that what we're talking about? Low power going up?
Oh, so the question is about how much power are we going to use? And it's a good question because I haven't covered it yet. We generally are throwing a significantly lower level of power towards these birds than you might expect. A lot of times, you said QRP. 5 watts, 10 watts is more than enough to work most of these birds. And as a matter of fact, on the linear birds, If you start throwing a lot of power into the linear bird, that bird is going to be taking your signal at the received level of power that it gets from you and retransmitting your signal wherever on that passband at the same signal, which means if you're doing 25 watts and everyone else is doing 5, you're taking up the equivalent of 5 operators worth of power from these from these satellite radios. Remember, these things are floating around in space, battery powered, they get solar powered, stuff like that, but not a lot of power to spare. All right, let's try one here. That's probably enough for kind of get the point across there, right? So did everyone hear that the frequency shifting was going on a little bit there? Yeah. Okay. So it's going to sound and feel a little different than some of the other birds you operate. My station over here, this is the Kilo 7 Alpha Juliet Golf Field portable satellite station I have set up over here. I had a few design goals when I went to build this. I wanted to be able to assemble or disassemble in no more than half an hour for each side of that. Use as few components as I could get away with because things break in the field and things get lost in the field. I wanted to be able to operate off the back of my truck. I didn't want to have to use any tools to put the station together or take it apart. I wanted to have a single power source, DC 12 volts, but ultimately I wanted something that would work for making consistent and repeatable, reliable satellite contacts. I accomplished, I feel like, pretty much all of these except for the power source thing. Unfortunately, I have one component in here, which is my rotator, which is designed to run on AC power. So I ended up getting a separate component for that. So we can see here, looking in the back of my truck, for those of you who are not here to actually see this in person, the radio is an ICOM IC9700. I have 2 elk log periodic antennas mounted onto a Yaesu G5500 DC rotator. I'm using a BioNO 20 amp hour ammo can battery pack there and a Jackery 300 watt portable power package there for my rotator, and my control and logging is using a Panasonic Toughbook, which is great for the field. You can get out there, get it dirty, dusty, wet, whatever, and it has a really nice bright screen, which is important also, and also the CSN SAT. I'll talk about that here a little bit in a second, but that's the little box up the very top there. Let's see if I can move on. A few other things here. Miscellaneous, best cables you can get away with. Part of my decision to run with as few components as possible means that I did not put a low noise or an LNA and put an amp into my setup anywhere. Now, if I was running this as a home station and I had a really long length of cable up to my roof, to the antenna or whatever, I would probably want to go and run with LNA at least on 70 centimeters, but not in this station. I feel I can get away with it by just turning the preamp on the radio. Really helps. LMR 400 or 240 Ultraflex also helps a lot. All right, and end connectors wherever I can. Again, better for the field, I feel like, than a lot of the alternatives. Right. I have the 2 antennas mounted there with a with a phasing assembly harness. This is just going to take a look over here. What I'm talking about here is a Diamond SS770R. helps to have the two antennas both operating simultaneously. Having them here like this and at about 90 degrees off from each other means that at any given time, I'm going to be receiving the satellite signal. Even though I'm not using circularly polarized antennas, I'm going to be catching from one antenna or the other the signal in close to its current actual polarization, or orientation, I should say. So that's why I kind of went with that. What is the polarization on the satellites is the question. A lot of the newer satellites are running linearly polarized. So the older ones tend to be circular polarized. I forget right or left hand or whatever. But the thing to think about, though, is that it's a linearly polarized signal, but the satellite is tumbling through space. So the antenna has to either be rotated, or in this case, two of them that are pre-rotated 90 degrees off of each other, which means one of them is usually pretty close. Oh, and protective covering cases and gear covers, kind of an important thing here. Another shot of my station, but I found out pretty quickly that running it in the direct sunlight was not really good for anything. So I made sure to go out and get some of these little collapsible portable equipment boxes that are designed to just kind of, you just twist them and they collapse down into a little disc. Really helps quite a bit. Also keeps the rain off of them. We used something similar in our field day earlier this year during our setup or early hours when we had a lot of rain going on. Right. So I don't know how well this is going to work. I got some video, don't really need the sound for it, but this will be working a packet station, IO117. So there's the IC9700. Listen. So I don't know how well that went across on the for anyone remote, but the local people may have heard the little, APRS sounding packet signal there. All right. So at the core of the system is an IC9700, great radio for working satellites. I've told everyone I'm not going to talk about pricing for things here, but I will say it's not the cheapest radio out there by far, but it has a lot of nice features like, you can get a RIT in every radio you get. This also has something called AFC that allows it to kind of adjust itself on the FM birds to automatically find its way to those signals for you without having to do any kind of like a RIT type adjustment. A nice waterfall so you can see what's going on. Run it barefoot up to 100 watts. And I also got a protective frame for mine, third party. The antennas I'm using are the ELK 2 meter 440 L5s, log periodic antennas. I had a little bit of assistance putting my station together before the presentation here. I love the fact that those antennas, I can just point, grab someone and say, match the colors and go. And that's what we did. It saved me a few minutes in my setup. Part of the reason why I chose these ELK log periodics as well, they're way lighter than an M2 Leo pack. Now, I'll tell you, these don't work anywhere near as well as the M2 antennas. If those of you who went to QRP to the field earlier in the year saw that setup, those antennas rock, right? I just didn't want to have to carry all that around in my truck and put it together and take it apart and all of that. But they're nice antennas. Right, the CSN Technologies SAT or self-contained antenna tracker. This is a self-contained special purpose or single purpose computer that is just all about doing nothing but satellite tracking and control for your station, right? It is designed specifically to work with a few radios, including the IC9700 and a few rotators, including the one I have there. And it just does a whole bunch of things for you. It has a really nice LCD screen on the front of it, so you can actually just look at the screen on the box and see when the next pass is, or if you're in a pass, when the loss of signal is going to be, things like that. And it has a web interface in it, so you can use your mobile phone or tablet or something like that as your field computer if you want to, and be operating very lightweight with this. So it's, sitting up there running on my my setup over here. So the question is, what does it use for the to control the tracking or to know where to point? So it actually the idea is you will get online at some point, either before the pass if you don't have access to internet while you're out in the field, or in my case, like what I like to do is when I do have access, I'll put my my phone into hotspot mode, and create a little hotspot there, and I'll pull down the latest satellite data directly from CSN. This is something called TLE data, 3-letter element, or 2-line, TLEs. it's the all the data that you need in order to be able to track the satellites as they pass overhead. I'll be honest, it's not something that I've done a lot of research into exactly how those TLEs work. I just know where to find them and how to load them into my system. But it uses those in order to predict the passes. And then after that, you select the bird you want to work, and it will send signals directly to the rotor controller, and the rotor controller will then move the rotor and point it, and it'll give a real-time display as to how close you're actually tracking the bird as it passes overhead. So the question is, like, how do you align all? So when I'm setting everything up, I just take out a compass or my phone with a compass app on it. I turn and face north, stand behind my antenna, and just adjust everything so it's pointing north. And that's really all you need. You don't need to be super specific. So I just make sure that I put the antenna in its park position. So everything's set to 0, 0 on the controller, and point it north. Make sure it's sitting flat, and like they say, Robert's your mother's brother, right? We're almost done here. I know we're going a little long. GreenCube, IO117 Microgreens Farm. I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail here, but this is a farm in space. Someone came up with this idea that they wanted to have this experiment, and they talked people into it. Hey, let's see what it's like to actually grow things in space. And GreenCube is that project. Luckily for us, now this is in medium Earth orbit, or MEO, they also happen to put a ham radio packet station on that bird, and we get to work that, right? Because why? Space is hard. It's an unforgiving environment. It's hard to figure out whether or not you can grow fruit out there. Futurama and Space Farmers tell us about this. Oxygen don't grow on trees. And we know it gets really cold in space, things like that. How cold it drops down to 173. So GreenCube, part of why I'm interested in this, I can get DX on 70 centimeters. Awesome, right? Anyone here make a contact with their HT and D-Star DMR? All of that doesn't count. That's over the internet. That's 5,380 miles or more. That's what you can do through GreenCube. Actually, I have one or two that are longer than that, but they're down to South America, and they don't look as good on the slide. All right, so GreenCube is a medium Earth orbit, or MEO, 435.310 megahertz, up and down, right? Mode UU. You're going to use 3 pieces of software to run it. Now, this is one of these things when you're using that CSN SAT, really you need 2 pieces of software. But when you're using that CSN SAT box to control everything, it means your regular field computer is free to do whatever you want to for running digital modes and things like that. All right. In this case, we're going to run UZ7HO sound modem in the GreenCube terminal. I also needed to upgrade my antenna system for this. So I do have this antenna in the back of my truck right now. I didn't carry it in with all the other stuff. But my improved antenna system here is a Wemo X Quad 70 centimeters. Short boom, lightweight, fits on there. I just pull those 2 off, put it on one side. And it is a circularly polarized antenna on its own as it's configured. with type N sockets rated to 100 or 1,000 watts rather. I think they say something like 12.8 dB gain, something like that. So pretty decent for being able to actually hear the packets and to get your signal out. Now, to go back to the question of power from earlier, these MEO birds and packet, if you're on a completely quiet pass, 300 milliwatts, right? With a system like what I have. How much power do I put into it? Andy, how much power did I put into it? Significantly more than 300 milliwatts. Yeah, I don't know if I want to say this because this is being recorded. No, a lot of GreenCube operators operate at 35 watts plus. And by plus, I mean up to the full, like 75 watts that the IC 9700 will put out. And that's because during a busy pass, there's so much packet congestion, it's almost impossible for your signal to be heard by the satellite through everyone else's packets all screaming at the bird at the same time. So this is one of those cases where, louder wins. So the question is, yeah, the satellite is transmitting constantly, pretty much, yeah. So it's receiving. Some of these birds do go into a little bit of downtime mode. IO 117 occasionally takes a break and they do different things where it's not available to us. But for the most part, recently it's been up and running around the clock. So we're going to use UZ7HO sound modem. This is a packet modem software. You can download from the website there. You got to get the specific version for GreenCube. It makes more adjustment for Doppler because it's a MEO and all of that. You go get the GreenCube terminal software. I'm not going to go through all the details on this because I know we're running a little longer probably than short version is. Looks kind of like FT8 or something similar to that, right? You have the ability to set up some macros. You can't really see it too well up in the top left corner there, but you see a lot of stations that are active and calling out on the left. You can see some of the ones that are being worked on the right. And up in the top right corner, you see that blue line up there that's indicating the packet signal quality that you're hearing throughout the pass. Right, so that's where you can get that terminal. Has a few really cool features in addition to what I was just showing there. Has a live QSO viewer. It will map in real time who's actually working who else on the bird in one of these little maps like this, one of these graphs. Kind of cool. So I can look there and say DG7RO, I guess that is right up there, pretty popular right in the middle. It also has a setting called Wyatt the Sheriff. And Wyatt the Sheriff looks at what you're doing while you operate and tells you to be a better operator. Some, interesting things it does. It'll look and say, hey, your canned CQ message has the word CQ in it, and you're sending to the recipient CQ. Do one or the other, and save a little bit of packet bandwidth. Right. So that's what we're trying to do here is just make sure all this stuff's working. So this software is under pretty heavy development, but it's really quality stuff. It's good stuff. It also has a practice mode or inject window. So even when you're not on the satellite, you can install the software and kind of pretend to make QSOs and see what the patterns are going to look like and kind of work your way through it. I hope we all had a good time. I had a good time here. Catch you out on the birds then. 7-3.
It's very clear that the Marine Corps was well served by having Al assist them, and it is very clear that we are well served by having Al assist us. Al, thank you so much. You've educated us and informed us, and I'm going to try it with my bow phone. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to come to you, and you're going to help me make that work.